Kia ora. Is it morena or good evening? No, it's afternoon. Kia ora, beautiful people. Wow, that birdie was loud. I don't know which one he was. If you are catching the live, say kia ora. If you are catching the replay, say hashtag replay and hello. I'm gonna have some convos about the fantastic old herpes virus today. Got a couple of things I would love to talk into that have come up for me to come out and share. Just trying to figure out how to do this one onto the story. Just give me one moment and I will be with you. Share to story. Beautiful. I think we're ready to go. Let's have a little look on the computer. If you are joining me, I would love to know that you are here and listening. It always makes it more exciting for me and you if I know that you are here with me. But if you are feeling reserved as well, that is okay. Feel free to tune in, and when you are ready, say kia ora, hello. If you have any burning questions about the herpes virus while I'm here, I always welcome them, especially when I'll come live and talk into herpes virus, stigma, self-worth, shame, all of those bits and pieces. We are shared properly. Cool. So I just like to open my computer when I come live and remind myself what I've put for the heading today, or the description for the live stream, because my mind goes crazy and intuitively flows in so many conversations when I share, but sometimes it's really good to have like a focus point to come back to so that I can talk into that particular topic. So what I've named it today is how would you feel, react, and think if someone you liked disclosed they had herpes to you. And then the second question I've got is, before you knew you had herpes, how would you have felt, reacted, and thought about things before you were diagnosed? So there's almost like, I don't like people putting people into groups of people, but there is, like I was just going to talk into the first question today, how would you feel if someone that you really liked and desired and really enjoyed their company, you were attracted to them and all those things, and then they in any different variety of, I suppose, situation, whether it's beginning dating or knowing each other for ages and being friends and then changing, etc., or it might even be a friend or a family member. It's not always just, disclosure isn't always just to a romantic or sexual or intimate or relationship type of partner. It can also be friendships, familyships, even workspaces, work colleagues, etc. Even disclosing to health professionals, etc., etc., can be really hard for people. But I nearly just spoke into that first question because I had some experiences come up in my memory, and was having a conversation with a new person in my life today that hadn't come across the kind of work I do and speak into around the stigma around STIs and herpes, and it was a really awesome open conversation, and it kind of triggered my thought patterns to talk into this today a bit more. And then I thought, well, do you know what, it's not only there's, what was I saying, two groups of people, so it's like, I don't like putting anyone into groups of people, but to describe and understand, because there can be different feelings that come up for us if we are in one group or the other group, if that makes sense. Someone that knows they're diagnosed with herpes and has all the challenging emotions or fears or or confusion or overwhelm, needing to disclose, and fear of rejection, fear of shame, embarrassment, bullying, not enoughness, feeling yuck. And then there is another group of people that many of this group of people actually live with the herpes virus as well, but they just do not know because the testing is inaccurate, and we don't always test for it, and a lot of our world actually lives with the herpes virus without us actually knowing, because it can lay dormant in our body and it is a very cheeky virus. So this second group of people is like the group of people that don't knowingly know or currently do not have the herpes virus or do not know they live with the herpes virus, and them having someone disclose to them that, hey, like, actually I live with the herpes virus, do you know anything about it, do you know anyone that lives with the virus, have you heard about it before, what do you know, what do you not know? So there's another group of people over here. So that's the only reason why, I suppose, to make clarity, to show that whether you have been in both of these groups, or we have different emotions come up depending on if we're in this situation or this situation. Yeah, so I don't like grouping people, but today in this core information, I feel like it's kind of supportive to kind of have that clarity of what I kind of want to talk into today, because it can be really, really hard. So that's why it can be really, really hard for both parties, for both parties to be gentle of each other's feelings, and our own feelings can take over, and our own past experiences and different experiences in sexual health and emotional health and relationships. It can stir, just knowing a herpes status or an STI status or a disclosure, it can trigger other things to come out in us from our past and our individual experiences. So it becomes way wider than just herpes or sexual health, which sometimes I feel like our society looks at it like that, oh, it's just about the sexual intercourse and the physicalness and the herpes and the STI, but then it really does open us into so much more than, excuse me, I might sneeze. Excuse me. It comes out to be so much more. There has been times where I have disclosed my herpes status in the past, and then people have come back and said to me, I've even had a guy say back to me before, he's come back and shared that he's lost a baby with a past partner before, and that's vulnerability. That's vulnerability, share, and connection. When you disclose something like a herpes status, and you can be, your heart's beating really fast out of your chest, and you're like, fuck, like, are they going to accept me? Are they going to reject me? Am I not good enough? And all these things. We all have something under the surface. We all have a story. We all have things. We've all had experiences and gone through our own things. So I think that's a beautiful example of how herpes is not always just about herpes and the disclosure. Like in that case, yeah, it was. I was scared and nervous having to step forward and disclose to this male potential person that I was speaking with, and he came back to me with something really vulnerable that. And I didn't ask him to do that, but it's almost like quite intuitively as humans, we can feel it, and then we just naturally and intuitively just come out and come back into connection and go, well, actually, thank you so much for sharing that with me. I can kind of resonate in some way how this might feel, because I have lost a baby before, or something else that comes up in your life, you know. I've also had someone come back and say, oh, well, I've been in jail before and certain things like this. So the power of vulnerability is fucking incredible. But coming back to my questions, and that's why I put them up here, I was only going to talk into the first one, and then I thought, no, well, there's kind of those two different types of people that could come into contact with this message and with the messages I have to share today. There's kind of like the person disclosing that it can be so horrifying, so scary, so shaky, so out of this world, so uncomfortable, really confronting, really nerve-wracking, to be able to actually build the confidence and the security and the peace and calm to actually be able to disclose in a way that is still holding your worth and your energy, and then having the other groups of people that it may shock you if you have never heard of herpes before. Most people have heard of it, but I tell you now, before I was diagnosed with herpes, I was a nurse. I'd heard the word herpes. I knew it was an STI. And that's it. And then I think in my subconscious mind, what were the thoughts I thought before I was diagnosed with herpes, before I was ever diagnosed with herpes, and I didn't need to worry about it. If someone had said the word herpes to me, the programming in my mind that I had from society before I was diagnosed and lived with it, it was in my subconscious, it was like, oh, I didn't say it and it wasn't out loud, but in my mind it was like, oh, you're shit, you're a slut, you're dirty, you're bad, you're naughty, you shouldn't have had sex, it's your fault, you're bad, you're shit. Like, that's kind of, so just I suppose a question to ask yourself. This is probably more for group 2 people. Kia ora, beautiful Phil, how are you? Just talking into some herpes talk today. Lovely to have you here. More talking in what I was just saying then, is more talking into group 2 type of people, like just registering for anyone out there that comes across this and doesn't currently live with the herpes virus or doesn't currently know they live with the herpes virus. If someone ever disclosed herpes or another STI or something else, could be another health thing, it could be mental health, it could be financial issues, it could be disclosing anything. And this is why I'm so passionate about like talking into this herpes stuff. But at the same time, it's not just herpes, you can relate it to anything in your life, but just try to open your mind. So if you are coming across this message today, that if someone disclosed something like that to you, whether you just met them and it was like you're going out on a date, or you just met them in a workplace or whatever, and someone disclosed something quite intimate or quite vulnerable or quite serious or sensitive to you, how could you really just take a deep breath and kind of, I suppose, bring yourself back into center and think, oh, there's some things, like reflect back into yourself and remind yourself that there is so many different stories we all have as humans. Phil says, I'm well, thank you. That's good, Phil. There's so many different human experiences that we have, and I suppose this is coming into trying to, or working towards, breaking down stigma as a whole and judgment and assumption, and breaking out of closed mindset that we all have an individual journey and we all have a different story, and trying to stay almost like open-minded, opportunistic when someone discloses something really big like that to you. I'm going to come back to my questions again. So how would you feel, react, and think if someone you liked disclosed they had herpes to you? So this is again for group 2 people that obviously don't knowingly or do not have the herpes virus, and someone disclosed to them. I suppose I wanted to talk into this today really heavy, guys, because I was having a conversation with someone new in my life that I've met, and I don't really know them. It's like the 3rd time I've met them. And we were having a conversation, and it made me think back to when I was first diagnosed with herpes. And even I can remember a month before I was diagnosed, I clearly remember I'd said a stigmatized judgment to a friend about another person that had the herpes virus. I don't shame myself for that. That was the version of myself then. That's all she knew. That's all she knew through programming, what society and stigma had taught me. And I remember saying, oh yeah, God, that dirty bitch, yep, she's got a herpes outbreak, yeah, because she slept around. And I said something, not those words exactly, but I said something like that. That was about 2 months before I was diagnosed with herpes. Not because I'm a horrible person, but there was also personal relationship stuff in the background, so that was my hurt attacking. Still not nice, but there was stigma in that judgment that came from my mouth, that my programming around herpes, because I had such drawn programming in my subconscious and in my mind from society, from upbringings in schools and things like that, and just everyday experiences in life, that if you have an STI, what we've always been told, or mainly been told when we were younger, is that you're yuck, you're not enough, you're yuck, your life's going to be ruined, everything's going to be bad, why would anyone want to sleep with you, regardless whether you have the herpes or you're the person who doesn't. And so today I wanted to share, I just need to read the question again. How would you feel, react, and think if someone you like disclosed they had herpes? So I really want you to think on this question today. And I had an experience. There used to be a friend, a person that I used to spend a bit of time with when I was first diagnosed, and she personally was in some sort of open relationship arrangement at the time. I don't talk to her now, I don't know her now, but at that time she was in some sort of open relationship arrangement, and was super open and had really big conversations. And one day we were having a conversation over a glass of wine, and I remember asking her, I was like, oh well, like, if you were a guy, would you still sleep with me, or would you still like invest your time in me if I disclosed that I had herpes? And I could see that she was really unearthed, that she was real shaky about it. And then I realized, oh, I think her answer is no. I was like, shit. And it was a really interesting eye-opener to see the way she reacted. And it's not a thing on her personally, but I feel like there's value in sharing this today, because then we sit down, I was like, it's okay, you can say the truth, how you feel, and what you actually genuinely feel about this when you think about it. Or, you know, if this really happened to you, like if you hadn't met your current husband, would you, and you met him now and you felt the same way about him and he disclosed that he had herpes, how would you feel? What would you think? What would come up for you? Like, can you feel into that? And for her partner, she said, yeah, that would be fine. But for me, she said no. But I was like, yeah, but it's a little bit hard to imagine, isn't it? Because she's already got like years and years of connection with him. But not with me. Like we haven't had years and years of friendship. And it was really interesting because she was like, no, I don't think I would pursue it. I'm sorry, but I don't think I would, because she was my friend and trying not to offend me and not trying to hurt my feelings, but trying to be truthful. And she knew what I was doing to kind of build the empire and work on crushing the stigma a little more over time, and supporting people with herpes diagnosis, and also people that maybe do not have herpes, but are supporting others in their life that live with the herpes virus. And what it made me think was, I get it. I get why she would have said no. I get it. I get it, depending on the individual person, their experiences, their mindset, and what they have been through. Because I think back to before I was diagnosed with herpes, and I did try to in the past ask myself, if someone I really liked, if a guy came up to me, someone I really liked, and you can put it in different situations, whether it's like a one-night stand or a first-time date or meeting the person for the first time, or whether you've been hanging out for a few weeks casually, or whether it's just sex or serious dating for a relationship, whatever it is. And I tried to ask myself, I was like, what would you have done, Maddie, before you know what you know now? If you didn't have the virus and you didn't know anyone and you knew nothing. And I really can't get a clear answer, but the clearest answer I got was I could have gone both ways. It would have depended on the individual person. It really would have depended on the connection, because if it was someone, there's a few situations I like think in my head. I'm like, number one, I could have been really closed off, Maddie, because I was then, and it might have been a judgmental thing depending on the individual person and the way they come across, the energy, their communication, who they feel like as a person to me, and my experiences with them so far. So it could have firstly been, no, just cut off, shut off. No, why would I want to sleep with you because you have an STI? And then it could have been in other situations, if I had been spending time with that person or knowing that person for quite a while, when I had a good connection with them, straight away I'd be like, well, it doesn't really matter, does it? Like, it really doesn't matter. And just step forward into that partnership, relationship, whatever kind of ship it is. And then there's another part of me that also in different situations I feel like maybe wouldn't have said yes or no, but would have said, can you tell me more, because I don't know anything about this. Or there could have been a part of me also that may have been naive to it, because I was naive to it. Well, not even naive, maybe careful, Maddie, judging yourself, but I didn't know. It's like this, but it's also not like this. This is the thing that's popping into my head though, but it's like similar but different to when, you know, like we say yes to having a baby, and then we have a baby. We're like, yeah, I know that it's big work. I know it's going to change my life. Blah, blah, blah. And we take all responsibility. We think it's not that extreme. We're like, yeah, I can handle it. It's going to be all good. Step through it. And then we get to the other side of it where it's unchangeable. Herpes is unchangeable. Depending on who you talk to, don't get me on that rant, because apparently you have herpes for life, which, yep, I get that. The virus is in your system for life, but I also have a new kind of opening window through this intuitive healing and beliefs of healing stuff deeper that I reckon you could probably heal it somehow. But anyway, it's kind of like a baby. Like, we know that babies are huge responsibility. They are huge life changes, the biggest life changes in our life. They are incredible. They are a roller coaster. They are so fucking worth it, but they're also the hardest fucking thing in the world, I reckon. And it's like when we say that we understand because we think we understand because we've worked with children. It's like, even me, sometimes people have complimented me and said, Maddie, you'll be a great mum, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, still doesn't mean it's not going to be hard for me. I've worked with children for years and years and years in different contexts and different situations and places and different children and different families. But that will never, ever be the same as when or if I have my own children. And through that, I will learn so much, and there will be things that I will go, shit, I did not think this was going to be as hard as it is, etc. But I went a bit off course there. So it kind of feels like that with herpes a little bit for me too, or for some people in these situations, if that makes sense. And I suppose a lot of it that's coming through today, guys, is open-mindedness about vulnerability, whatever it is, whether it's herpes or something else. It's like, coming back to our question again, how would you feel, react, and think if someone you liked disclosed they had herpes? And I think back to those old versions of myself when I did not have herpes, and that's kind of like did I give you 4 options then? Like, one would have been just like shut off, but it probably wasn't just about the herpes. I would have shut off because I was uneducated, and I would have been like, well, no, I don't like that person. know they have an STI and then use it as an excuse to walk away, or I would have been open-minded and asked more questions, or I would have been kind of almost naive because I didn't know the information. It's like, it doesn't really matter, I'm probably not going to get it, because you never think, no one has ever gone into having sex and gone, yeah, I'm definitely going to get herpes. Like, it's all good. Like, we kind of all, you know, we kind of walk around and we kind of think, well, that will never happen to me. It will never happen to me. It's like all sorts of other different illnesses and different things like that, or unfortunate things. Of course, we can have like negative mindsets and things that think, oh, everything bad always happens to me, etc., etc., as well as the opposite. But I think you'll get what I'm saying there. And then I think now about a lot of the other disclosures and different situations I've had, disclosing to people in all sorts of different kind of situations or relationships, so romantic ones, in my career paths, friends, family, people close to me, random people, even at concerts I've disclosed before, like randomly, not purposely going, I'm going to disclose, but they've asked me certain things and it's just come out. And what did you say, Phil? Phil says, interesting life, beautiful soul. The old me would have been similar to the old you. Now, however, it would be totally different. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing, Phil. It's huge. And I feel like a lot of people are scared to say that they would say no if someone disclosed something really sensitive and vulnerable, like, hi, I live with an STI. I don't feel like we or the old versions of us are alone in that because the older, more without judgment, unconscious versions of ourselves have been programmed by society and by this stigma and this judgment and this shame that has been put on society, and not just STIs but in so many different areas of our life, has conditioned and programmed us. And then it's like almost automated. It's almost like, I was thinking about this in the shower before I came on live, guys, but it came up in my mind that, so when we think of a certain something, so say I say the word vomit, like, do you feel nice? No. Like, if I say something really, I don't know if this is a good example, we'll try and flow with it, and if it's not, I'll redirect. But say, I don't know, say we've had a bad experience with something, and then I could get really serious, and then the next thing that popped into my head was like sexual abuse or something like that, and we hear the word sex, say, and we've had a sexually abusive situation or something. Sorry, that just got really heavy really fast. Just felt it hit me in the chest. Sorry if there's anyone this is sensitive to right now, and just using it to share the experience. Yeah, it's like, so say you had a experience that you experienced through sexual abuse, or maybe it wasn't even you, maybe it happened around you, etc. And then it's 2 years down the track or whatever, it's a certain amount of time down the track, and then you hear someone joking in a workplace, being funny about like a sex joke or something, or like, yeah, did you get some in the weekend, haha, and it may just trigger you to think yuck or unsafe, or this is bad, this is naughty, I'm not safe, etc. The stigma and the programming and the judgment around herpes, very different, but also there's similarity there, if that makes sense. So we have, like, when you hear the word herpes, unless you follow me and you hear me talk about it a lot, most people, not everyone, but generally a lot of us, if I say the word, oh yeah, herpes, I'm a herpes mentor, most people are like, oh. Kind of makes you want to like screw your face up, hey? Like, if it's your first time hearing me talk about herpes, or hear someone talk about herpes, depending on who you are and your experiences out there, whoever's listening. But it's like, if you hear a certain something, we kind of think it draws a connection or a picture. There might be like a more fancier word for it, but we have a connection in our brain, in our pathways, that automatically has been programmed to think like herpes, yuck, she's ruined, she's a disease, straight away. Phil says, today I would totally have the conversation and definitely more empathy in the conversation. I love that, Phil. Yeah, and it takes time though, but I also feel like, does that come from your own experiences? Like, is there a vulnerability in your life of experiences that you're like, wow, this is a real vulnerable thing about me that I don't share with many people? And it actually takes a lot of courage and to realize and know, because the reasons I would have said no in the past, before I knew that I was diagnosed with herpes, before I experienced it, was because my automation and my subconscious mind straight away was like, well, your life will be ruined. No one will love you. It's so shit. Oh my God, the panic. Oh my God, you have herpes. Your life's over. Like, that's kind of the feeling I would get if I was like, oh, well, I don't want to. And I've even had people ask me questions. There was one guy that I just slept with a couple of times after my herpes diagnosis, and he the initial time we first, he had followed my journey for a while, and knew that I had herpes because I shared it publicly and things like that. So he definitely knew, and so it was a little bit harder and a little bit more unique than the average person because I share it on social media. So it was kind of like, I don't need to disclose because you fucking know I have herpes, but we do need to have some sort of conversation, because I don't know how much you actually understand or have listened or know about herpes, or if you really understand the risks, if you really understand the virus, if you really understand. And we need to have a conscious conversation, not just about herpes, but about how I feel safe. That's something I've learned through my journey. It's not just about me. Often we think it's the person that has herpes is a risk, and it's really not. And if you followed my journey for a while, I had chlamydia for like the 4th or 5th time after my herpes diagnosis, and I disclosed, I used protection, I had a conversation, and I was more worried about the other person and me being a worry on him. And then I ended up with chlamydia, which was passed through him. I like that wording better because it wasn't his, but it was everyone's, because it's a virus that gets passed around. It's no one's fault, but it is our fault if we don't action and we don't try and look after ourselves and have these conversations. So I'm going a little bit off topic a little bit, guys, but I suppose where was I going with that, with the chlamydia? What did Phil say? Today I would totally have the conversation. Oh yeah, so vulnerability and stuff like that, really understanding that trigger in our subconscious mind has almost, like, a lot of people, when I tell them about my herpes, they screw up their face, and they don't, and I don't judge them. Before I'd be like, why are you screwing up your face? Do you not like me? Am I not enough? That's what I would feel inside. And I've shifted over the time now into this space where I'm like, it's okay. Their system is in a little bit of shock, just like yours was, Maddie, because society has fucking taught us to react like this. It's kind of like a kid when they stub their toe and it's bleeding, or a kid when they fall over and they graze their knee. Beautiful example. They graze their knee, they look at it. A lot of kids will look at it and go, ah! But where have they learnt that? They've learnt that from external experiences of their parents, of their mum going, ah, when there's blood, or a panic, or someone around them when there's been blood, and we panic. And it's like, we're all scared of blood, like, kind of thing. Not everyone, but do you know what I mean? It's the same as, don't even get me started on like menstrual blood and periods and things like that, because there's such deep conditioning there, and it can be related to anything, not just herpes, but today herpes has come up. So just learning to have those conversations and normalize, and actually ask, like, okay, have conversations about, well, what would it be like if I did catch the virus? Is it the end of the world? Oh my God, would it be the end of the world? Because for a long time there, I thought still, yeah, it would be the end of the world if I got it. Or if I gave it to someone else, it would be the end of the world. And I believe that I've given herpes to 2 people, possibly. You never know for sure, and I don't actually hold guilt against that at all, because it's a virus, it's inevitable, and they could have already had it before they encountered with me. Of course, you want to minimize it, and you don't want to give it to anyone purposely. That would be horrible, but I believe that I don't hold any guilt around it. There is some times where I do you go, oh, I feel for that person? But it's because I feel for them and I care for them. But if it didn't come from the space of passing through my body, it could have already been in their body because it is such a cheeky virus. Phil says, growing up where I did, empathy was in short supply. Then moving to Australia and meeting different people, I started to open my mind. That's really big. Hey, Phil, where did you grow up? You grew up in New Zealand, hey? I feel like you grew up in New Zealand somewhere. It is, and it's such closed-mindedness, and I feel like there's so many expectations and so many boxes to kind of fit in as well, and just having these open conversations. But I think it can be so hard these days because we have a lot of like wanting to be right and wrong in our society, and like a lot of perfectionism, a lot of expectation, and then so we are often very closed-minded because we're scared of judgment, or we're scared of being different, or we're scared of disagreement too. That disagreement is actually good sometimes. I had a conversation with someone in my life yesterday and I was like, I don't think we're ever going to agree on this. We really aren't. I was like, I am way this way and you are way this way, and I know I'm so stubborn, truth 100% on this belief set, and it is in my truth and my core, and I can see that you're very strong over here, and I am not moving, and I feel that you are not moving. So it's okay. Can we disagree and understand that we're just different, and that's okay. Phil says, Gisborne, yeah, and empathy is a really... There's another word too, Phil. I don't actually know what word would describe it, but you're talking about having empathy for people. But there's also another element that I'm feeling coming through, but I don't know what the word is. I'm just... like something to do with the vulnerability of understanding that we're all human and it's inevitable that we all have things. It's like herpes, also a lot of people don't know the education behind it. Like the education out there is fucking shitballs. But if you really start to understand it, a lot of people say that herpes virus is not deadly. I disagree, and that makes me fire up because I believe herpes virus can be deadly mentally. Not physically, it can't physically kill you, but mentally I believe that there would be definitely multiple different people around the world that have committed suicide or self-harmed or emotionally harmed themselves, or with guilt, with shame, with not allowing themselves to live their life full, etc. But I suppose coming back again, it's like the inevitables of life, that this is a virus that lives in so many of our human bodies, but physically, yes, the outbreaks are not fair, they're not good, they're not nice, they're not comfortable, so of course you don't want to give it to anyone. But a lot of people, when disclosing your herpes, and then someone that does not currently know or have the herpes virus choosing to say no thank you, that's not for me, often because they are not educated, because they don't understand the risk, or they've been told in their programming is it's bad, it's going to ruin your life, you're going to have a sore hoo-ha or willy, and like don't do that, then you'll be contaminated. If you actually break it down and you actually start to understand it, that the things are manageable. I think now I have not had, I don't even know, it's somewhere between one and a half years that I have not had a proper full-on outbreak. I used to get them for the first 6 months I was diagnosed. It was fucking horrific. I was in hospital 2 times. It was horrible. I used to get a lot of really bad nerve pain on the back of my bum and my legs. And now that I've worked through intuitive healing, mindset, a lot of mindset work, my holistic health, my sleep, the way my lifestyle is, I hardly have to worry about it now. I like forget that I have the virus. And I've only just gone on 3 years of my herpesversary. So the herpes virus over time, generally in most cases, gets less severe because your body's immunity builds up and helps you. And stress is the biggest precipitator. I just need to choke to say that. What does that mean? Stress is the biggest precipitator that triggers and causes herpes to outbreak in the body. If you're not managing your stress, and that's how it was such a gift to me. But we're going on a bit of a tangent now. But often if someone is feeling these thoughts and things, I suppose what I'm trying to normalize is that it's okay. Please don't feel guilty if someone discloses that they live with the herpes virus and you're unsure, you're scared, you don't know how you feel about it, or you're feeling like, oh no. Please don't shame yourself, but you can approach it in a way that, hey, I don't know enough about it. Thank you for sharing this with me. It was really, really brave, but I don't feel ready, or it doesn't feel right for me. The person is probably still going to hurt, because it's called rejection. It's not the herpes, it's the wounds underneath the herpes. It's the self-worth, it's all the rejection and the breakups and the heartbreaks and the child abandonment and all the other things that come up when we have some form of rejection, that mostly we associate rejection with that we're not good enough, and that rejection is negative. Rejection is not always negative. Rejection is that someone is choosing that path's not right for them right now. They're choosing that something else is a priority right now. And that's okay, because our own life is for us and theirs is for them. And then sometimes we get to choose who we have in our bubble, and then they change, our friends, our relationships. So that's kind of what that was quite powerful. I like that. And then, before you knew you had herpes, how would you have felt and reacted and thought? So I also want to share today, don't beat yourself up if that old version of yourself before you had herpes. I talked to another lady a few weeks ago, and she was newly diagnosed with herpes, and she was sharing the same thing. I shared the story about how I had a bullying statement come out of my mouth before I was diagnosed with herpes towards someone that I knew that had herpes. And she said, do you know what, Maddie? I did the same thing not long ago. I would have thought, you dirty bitch, you're a slut, la la la, yuck, yuck, yuck. And then she was like, fuck, I'm horrible. Why was it so horrible? Was it karma that came back at me? And in my personal opinion, I was like, you only knew what you knew. You only knew what you knew, which was programmed in your mind. And forgiving those parts of ourselves and taking ownership now to be able to working on that and changing that, choosing to make peace with that part of you, those versions of you that only knew the best that you knew, and it was programmed in our mind that this is dirty, you're a slut, you're this, that, the other. And then walking through that to solve it, to mend it, solution-based, and to come into sharing those examples so that you can grow and heal, so that you can be a better person for yourself and for external people, and be more sensitive, empathetic, caring, understanding, more open, more opportunistic, more vulnerable with people. It's big, baby. So it's okay to feel how you feel, and don't shame yourself for any of the feelings or thoughts or behaviors that come up. Obviously, it's different if you erupt at someone for it. I don't think that's on. That's not very fair. You might need to have some time out by yourself. But I hope that you can understand what I'm saying in a sense of, it's also okay if you don't even care. I've had an argument with myself about that before. There's been some males that I have disclosed to in my sexual intimate life before, and they're like, Maddie, I don't give a shit about that. I don't even care. I don't want to talk about it. Let's just keep going. And I'm like, what? I'm like, does he give a shit? I'm worried about my fanny now. I'm like, I'm worried about, what about my own stuff? Does he even care about his own body? And I was like, maybe it just means nothing to him. Maybe he just likes who I am. Maybe he's really attracted to who I am as a person, physically, emotionally, mentally, and my aura, and my energy, all of who I am. Maybe he just likes me for me. So stepping away and really allowing yourself, regardless whether you're the discloser or you're, can you call it a disclosee? Whether you're the one getting disclosed to or doing the disclosing. Just coming into, I suppose, more of an observation role, like just observing and taking a deep breath and going, okay, this is just what this person is respecting me by disclosing right now, and they're building courage. I don't know how I feel about it. I need a minute. Or if you disclose and then the person you disclose to comes back and they're like, I don't really understand this, like, can you tell me some more? Or if they don't really want to know about it, like trying not to read into all the bits and pieces and assume and like make up the stories and things, just observing that, okay, this is what the person has said and feels right now. Okay, how do I feel right now? Okay, okay, I'm observing this. This is interesting. What's going on? And then kind of spending that time to just see how you feel about it and seeing that it's interesting, rather than us taking it as this is the definition of our self-worth, or this makes me a bad person because I don't feel comfortable with that, or no way, and starting to judge the person for things. Like really stepping back, laying everything down, and just being the observer. Super powerful. Thank you for joining me today, Phil. Phil says, love that you do this, Maddie. It warms my heart and inspires me. Thank you so much, Phil. And I'm sure you can relate to something else in your own life. I think that's the biggest thing. Like, when I talk with people about herpes, I'm like, if you don't have herpes, you can't relate to it. Take herpes out and put your stigma in there, whatever it is, whether it's alcoholism, whether it's weight gain or weight loss, or whether it's single parenting, whether it's addiction, whether it's some cultural differences. You can put whatever stigma possible into that, and we can relate it into the courage, the vulnerability, the openness, opening our heart and trying to be understanding and loving to all parts of ourselves, all of our shadows, all of our light, and all the people and relationships, detaching from making it mean something and coming into, this is interesting, this is what's going on, okay, what am I learning from this? How do I feel about this? How am I moving through this? Phil says we all have our own stigma. We sure do. We sure do. I would love to hear what your stigma is, Phil. And if you're not comfortable to share it here, send me a private message. Thank you for joining me today, Phil, and anyone else live or on the replay. I love you all dearly. I hope there was some pieces of deliciousness that triggered your mind or your heart to open today. I love you all dearly, and I will talk to you again soon.